Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Asheville City Council meeting. Today's April 28th. Yep, should double check that. If you would just take a moment to silence your cell phones. If at any point during the meeting you would like to speak on an agenda item and you're not already signed up, just make your way out into the hall and you can sign up to speak under the agenda. If you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin, I'm going to read our chamber decorum statement, and then we will go on to our proclamations. Members of the public attending council meetings or addressing the council shall abide by the following rules. Everyone shall follow the instructions of the mayor or any other presiding officer or official, and shall refrain from impeding or interrupting the conduct of business. This shall include, but not be limited to, clapping, yelling, or other audio expressions or approval or disapproval of comments made during the meeting. Persons addressing the council are expected to observe the decorum of the chamber, to be respectful of the council and the public, to refrain from the use of profanity or foul language, to refrain from personal attacks and commentary on candidates for political office, and to refrain from making disclosures prohibited by the Personnel Privacy Act with respect to any city employee. Failure to abide by these rules may subject you to removal from the council chambers. Thank you. All right, we have several proclamations this evening, and the first proclamation on our agenda tonight is I'm trying to remember the title of it, just bear with me, is National Police Week, and Councilmember Bo Hess is going to present this proclamation. He's also chair of the Public Safety Committee. Just in time, we have a number of our APD here. Welcome. Bo, if you'll grab that.
Good evening. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week, and whereas the members of the Asheville Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of those within the city of Asheville, and whereas it is important that everyone understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of law enforcement, and that members of the Asheville Police Department recognize their duty to serve the community by safeguarding life and property, protecting against violence and disorder, and defending the innocent against deception and the vulnerable against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the City of Asheville Police Department provide a vital public service, now therefore the Mayor, Esther E. Manheimer, do proclaim May 10th through the 16th, 2026 as National Police Week in the City of Asheville, North Carolina, and call upon our entire community, including civic and educational organizations, to observe this week with appropriate ceremonies and observances. Let us join in honoring law enforcement officers, past and present, who through their faithful and dedicated service have contributed to the safety and well-being of our community. And furthermore, we proclaim May 15th, 2026 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in the city of Asheville, and call upon our entire community to recognize and honor those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to the community or have become disabled in the performance of duty. Let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have on our agenda the Public Service Appreciation Week, and Maggie Ullman, Councilwoman Maggie Ullman, will present this item. If you are here on this one, please step forward. It says Lauren Abe, and
They're coming in.
okay. Yeah. Come on in, don't be shy, please come in. No wonder there's so much gabbing out in the hall.
Everybody. This on? I think it is. Okay. Hey, so glad you're all here. So I'm going to start out with this Public Service Recognition Week proclamation. Whereas the residents of Asheville are served daily by dedicated professionals at the federal, state, county, and municipal levels of government. And whereas these public servants often go unrecognized as they perform the essential labor that keeps our city, state, and county running. Whereas many public servants, including police officers and firefighters, risk their lives daily in service of our community, while others, including inspectors, IT specialists, accountants, water and public works crews, engineers, community center staff, administrators, and many others, work tirelessly to serve Asheville with efficiency and integrity. Whereas public employees across all levels of government are committed to the highest professional standards and are dedicated to providing excellence in service to our people. And whereas public servants provide the vital continuity and stability necessary for a functional democracy and regularly transitions between elected leaders. And whereas the city of Asheville recognizes the immense contribution of time and talent provided by these employees and honors the critical importance of your work. Now, therefore, our mayor, Esther Manheimer of the city of Asheville, proclaims May 3rd through 9th, 2026 Public Service Recognition Week. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Oh, it's a pretty good group photo there.
That is a good one.
Thank you all.
I love public servants.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have a proclamation for Huntington's Disease Awareness Month. And I think Mackenzie Luxmore is here. And our Vice Mayor, Antanette Mosley, will read the proclamation.
Proclaim everything.
Whereas Huntington's disease is an inherited, progressively degenerative, neurological disease that causes total physical and mental deterioration over a 10 to 20-year period. And whereas the prevalence of Huntington's disease makes it a rare disease, there are over 80,002 citizens in the state of North Carolina with the potential to develop Huntington's disease. And whereas current models suggest that more than 14,002 North Carolina residents are currently diagnosed with Huntington's disease, underdiagnosis rates make that number potentially more than 28,002. And whereas there is a 50% chance for the children of Huntington's patients to inherit the disease and continue to pass it down generation after generation. And whereas stigma, genetic discrimination, and fear prevent many patients from seeking care. And whereas there has been great progress in medical research and treatment, there is still not a cure for those suffering from Huntington's disease. And whereas since 2009, HD Branch has been working to improve the care and quality of life of those affected by Huntington's disease in North Carolina through care navigation, referrals to health care and financial planning resources, family support, education, community building, and anonymous genetic testing. Now, Esther Manheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, does hereby proclaim May 2026 as Huntington's Disease Awareness Month in Asheville and urges all residents to lend their support to HG Ranch, medical institutions, and research teams in their efforts to serve patients and families with this devastating disease and to unravel the mysteries of treatment and eventual cure. Thank you so much.
And now I will come down and read the proclamation for Amyotrophic Lateral Sclerosis Awareness Month, otherwise known as ALS Awareness Month. And I have Margaret Black here and anyone else with you, Ms. Black. Whereas amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, is a progressive and fatal neurodegenerative disorder that attacks nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord, gradually robbing individuals of the ability to move, speak, swallow, and breathe. And whereas approximately 5,000 people are diagnosed with ALS each year, and whereas ALS strikes people regardless of race, age, gender, ethnicity, or social status, and currently has no known cause, means of prevention, or cure, making diagnosis difficult. Whereas individuals living with ALS, along with their families and caregivers, face significant physical, emotional, and financial challenges, often requiring specialized equipment, home modifications, and full-time care that can exceed insurance coverage. And whereas people who have served in the military are approximately twice as likely to develop ALS and die from the disease as those with no history of military service. And whereas continued public awareness and community engagement are vital in advancing scientific research, expanding access to resources, and fostering compassionate support for individuals and families navigating the challenges of ALS. And whereas ALS Awareness Month increases the public's awareness of people with ALS's dire circumstances and acknowledges the terrible impact this disease has not only on the person, but the family and the community, and recognizes the research being done to eradicate this disease. And whereas by raising awareness, we amplify the voices of those impacted by ALS and strengthen our collective resolve to create a future without this devastating disease. Now, therefore, I, Esther Manheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, do hereby proclaim May 2026 as I'm have a hard time saying this, Amyotrophic Lateral Sclerosis Awareness Month in Asheville, and call upon all residents to join in supporting ALS research, advocating for increased funding, and standing in solidarity with those affected by this relentless disease.
Thank you. It's an honor to accept this proclamation on behalf of the ALS United North Carolina organization, as well as all the individuals and families and caregivers who are living with ALS every day. This proclamation matters because awareness drives action, and action for research and advocacy as well as care. A fine example of action happening right now in Asheville and Buncombe County is our brand new clinic. Dr. Macamel, who runs it, a clinic down in Arden, which helps patients get all the inherent vital therapies that they need. They no longer have to travel to Charlotte or Winston-Salem for this, so it's wonderful. So, and we have other things planned for the area to raise more awareness through the year. So as we recognize ALS Awareness Month, we invite the community to learn more and join ALS United North Carolina in our efforts to end ALS forever. So thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That concludes the proclamations for this evening. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Do I have questions, comments, or a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we don't have anyone signed up to speak under the consent agenda, so if there aren't any questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, our very long consent agenda is approved. Next, we have presentations and reports, and I'm going to turn it over to the manager for the manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Today we have Emily Ball, who's going to give us an update on the Continuum of Care. We had some robust conversation earlier, and this presentation may answer some of the questions you have around the work that they're doing.
Great, thank you. Glad to be here with you all again this afternoon. Several key takeaways. The Continuum of Care, or COC, as you all know, is our community's planning body on collaborative homelessness response. COC has been very busy, and I'm glad to tell you about some of the activities underway. COC conducted the 2026 point-in-time count, which identified a slight increase in homelessness with results that demonstrated continued impact from Helene as anticipated. COC also has a strategic plan that I'll review, which is already responsive to the count results, and implementation of that plan is actively underway. Early wins in the COC indicate high potential for community-level collaboration. And to continue scaling response to homelessness, the COC will need to identify additional resources. 2026 point-in-time count results, as I know you're familiar with and several of you participated in the count this year, COCs conduct point-in-time counts annually as a snapshot to inform national and local understanding of homelessness. So results are reported to the federal government, aggregated, and presented to Congress every year. This year's count occurred February 10th, and we had 137 volunteers who participated, so that number continues to increase every year. A lot of community participation in this. COC's System Performance Committee, which manages data in the COC, reported the results at a membership meeting on March 26th and highlighted that those results are just a snapshot of homelessness in our community and a useful indicator to understand the larger picture, but we shouldn't understand point-in-time results to be comprehensive and the entirety of the population of folks experiencing homelessness. That committee is working with multiple data sources now, including point-in-time data, including data from our homeless management information system, and working to develop baseline system-level data that will be publicly available later this year. So working to get a comprehensive picture of homelessness in our community that can be monitored on an ongoing basis. The COC identified several systemic contributors to homelessness. None of these will be a surprise to you. First is lack of affordable housing. We know from national research that this is the #1 indicator of rates of homelessness in any community. That's certainly also true here. Research shows that personal factors like addiction or mental illness can precipitate loss of housing, but don't drive that community rate in the same way that affordable housing drives the rate. Also, we know our community continues to experience impacts from Helene, and 16% of people counted in the point-in-time count reported that Helene was the cause of their homelessness. Also, we know that our homeless system was already under-resourced before Helene, so more funding, shelter and housing inventory, and service provider capacity are needed. Some of the key factors in this year's results are that we had increased shelter inventory from ABCCM, Safe Shelter, and Covenant Community Church, which was a Helene-dedicated project for folks who were displaced by the storm. Code Purple was not called on the night of the point in time count and had been called for a number of nights prior to that. That's 95 beds that were not available on that night. So potentially, had Code Purple been called, we would expect the unsheltered number to be lower in the point in time count with those folks able to access shelter had it been available. And then this year we had a very strong partner in Barnardsville. You'll recall that the point in time count covers all of Buncombe County, which is the COC's geography. So we had a strong partner in Barnardsville who identified 41 people experiencing homelessness in that community compared to 16 last year and 3 the year prior. The totals are on the screen here and including historic data from the past 2 years. So this year we identified a total of 824 people experiencing homelessness on that night. Those are folks who fall into 3 categories. So the first is emergency shelter. We had 245 people identified there. Transitional housing, also 245 people identified there. And you'll see that that's a really significant increase from the prior year. Our largest transitional housing project in the community is ABCCM's Veterans Restoration Quarters, which of course was destroyed by Helene. So you see the number in 2024 was 250 folks in transitional housing. Extreme change in 2025 after that facility was lost. And then as they've been building back capacity at a temporary location, those beds have increased. And then we also identified 334 people who were unsheltered. So that's folks who are camping or in cars or on the street or otherwise in places not meant for habitation, not in a program. So that's people who were surveyed by volunteers. Again, I know some of you participated in that. And also folks who were at service locations like A Hope or Haywood Street and were able to complete the survey there. Demographics in the point in time count, you again can see historic data here from the past 2 years. So we continue to see that the majority, that we have a larger portion of folks in the count who identify as men. I won't walk through this line by line, but certainly this is available to you and I'm happy to answer any questions. In race, we continue to see a disproportionate representation of folks who identify as Black, African American, or African compared to the general population. It's about 3 times compared to the general population in Buncombe County. The age of folks experiencing homelessness ranges from people under 18 all the way to people over 65, with the majority of folks being 35 to 44. And then household composition continues to be true that the largest portion of folks who are experiencing homelessness in our community are individual adults, with 85% of people counted this year in that category. I want to back up, actually, I'm sorry this wasn't identified on this slide, but I want to back up to the totals to name that. I mentioned in the takeaways that 16% of people reported that they were experiencing homelessness as a result of Helene. So that 245 folks in transitional housing, that included 43 people who were in a project specific to families displaced by Helene. And then the unsheltered count included 87 people who identified that Helene was the direct cause of their experience of homelessness.
So had it not been for Helene, we'd seen a drop. Our programs and
The
infrastructure.
data suggests that had it not been for Helene, we would have seen a drop.
I have questions, but I'll wait.
COC has been very busy, as I mentioned, and first, we have really high engagement across the community in this collaborative planning body. We currently have 621 members in the COC. And more importantly to me, we have 103 of those members are currently serving on the board, on a committee, or on a work group. And committees and work groups, I know some of you participate in those. Committees and work groups meet every 2 weeks, so this is a high degree of community involvement in this. Our committees are advocacy, community relations, funding, nominating and membership, system performance, and system planning and implementation, meant to cover the full specter of activity needed and to complement each other. And then we have 4 work groups right now. The Code Purple work group actually wrapped up today for the season. Coordinated Entry work group, Emergency Shelter Development work group, and Homelessness Prevention work group. COC board last year adopted a 3-year strategic plan, and all of the actions in the strategic plan are assigned to COC bodies, so the board, primarily committees and work groups. And themes in that plan include establishing baseline data, looking at utilization of our current resources to make sure that we're maximizing what we have now, and then expanding capacity of particular interventions and building infrastructure. The COC is only 2 years old, so looking to really build that foundation through the strategic plan. The plan has 4 objectives. First is to decrease unsheltered homelessness. Second is to increase exits from homelessness to permanent housing, to coordinate and expand prevention, diversion, and rapid rehousing, and then to build housing-focused system capacity. Each of those objectives has 3 strategies, and then each strategy has a number of actions that, again, are assigned to primarily committees or work groups to execute. Some of the early wins that I wanted to highlight for you in the COC's work are here. So first, Code Purple and Winter Shelter. This year's implementation of Code Purple was very different than we have had in the past. We had many more beds than we've had before for more populations. For example, this year's plan included a spot for people with pets and couples. We've not had that in the past. So more beds for more populations. We also had much better coordination and collaboration. We had shared operations coordinators to help identify where there were beds available and get the person to the bed that was a fit for them, and then shared data. We used a fair share funding approach through the COC with available resources. So that included city funding, $428,000, which included ARPA funding and CDBG DDRF, so 2 sources of one-time funding were key contributors there. And then county funding and funding from Mission Health to the COC for the COC to distribute to partners. So an overall system-level collaboration on that initiative rather than individual agency driving that. Secondly, we newly have a memorandum of understanding between the COC and the Housing Authority for admissions preferences. This is really exciting. This was an action in the strategic plan for the COC. Will literally end homelessness for many people in our community. Through the admissions preferences pathway with the Housing Authority, there will be access via referrals from the COC for project-based vouchers and tenant-based vouchers, 25 for people exiting homelessness, 25 for survivors of domestic violence, and then 50 vouchers labeled moving on for folks who are already in housing but ready to graduate from that supportive housing project, or who have a federal rental subsidy that is expiring but need additional subsidy in order to continue to stay housed. This system-level collaboration was developed following our COC process, and all of the households who enter housing through this pathway will receive 12 months of housing case management, apart from folks in that moving on preference who are already stably housed. All of this will be under COC infrastructure and oversight, so referrals made through coordinated entry in the COC will certainly have shared data and public reporting to the board, along with monthly case review meetings. And then finally, another early win is the Right at Home initiative. I know you're all familiar with this, but this is a really exciting national opportunity and exciting thing for our community to be part of. It's a national initiative to demonstrate the efficacy of homelessness prevention, meaning if people are currently housed at risk of losing that housing, can we help them stabilize there so that they don't enter homelessness? We were one of 10 pilot communities selected to receive a minimum of $5 million in private funding to serve at least 1,000 households over a 3-year period. This is building on a model in California that demonstrated 90% of households kept their housing 2 years after this intervention, and that $1 invested saved $2.47 in community costs. So, as with many things, prevention is an effective strategy in a large, complex problem like homelessness. The goal of the initiative is certainly to prevent many people from losing their homes, but it's also to create a clear evidence-based blueprint for a national homelessness prevention strategy. So there's a heavy research component to this, and the goal is to do robust, really rigorous evaluation of the implementation so that we can demonstrate the efficacy of prevention for future federal consideration. The selection criteria for this opportunity included demonstrated need, committed public sector leadership, data capacity to implement that evaluation, and then strong local infrastructure, including lead organization capable of coordinating and managing funds. So that is the COC. COC is what has made us eligible for this opportunity in our community because we have that framework in place. And then some of the focus areas for the COC right now, again, COC is 2 years old, so a lot of foundation development right now, looking at data, funding, system mapping, building out infrastructure. As we talked about earlier, we have an emergency shelter work group that has completed a needs analysis and initial vision for new emergency shelter. So identifying that as a high priority within the COC. And then the COC has recently begun working on system level fund development, really identifying that there is a need for reliable recurring funding to inform planning and to be able to deploy strategically. We know that some critical needs we have in the COC are emergency shelter, Code Purple, since so much of the funding for this past year was one-time funding, so a need to be sure that we maintain funding to be able to maintain that same capacity in the coming year. And then permanent housing, of course. And also that not only do we need additional funding to fill those gaps to hold the line with our current capacity, but our current capacity is not sufficient for the need in our community. So in order to scale services to respond to the need of folks who are experiencing homelessness, we've got to identify additional resources to build out that capacity further. Key takeaways again are that we're busy, got a lot going on, a lot of community involvement, and a lot of great momentum to be advancing this collaborative effort. Certainly happy to answer any questions.
Can we pick up on that last comment you just made, that we actually do not have capacity for our current need? Because I guess we go back and forth on this. Do we have a number of beds? Are they available? Or is the type of facility and its restrictions part of the problem? But I've been long under the impression that in the crux of like the midwinter, when it is most vital that people are sheltered, that we did actually have enough beds in the community. It just may not be the bed desired. Like you wouldn't be able to stay with your coupled partner was a good example. But are you saying something different now, that because of this growing need, we actually now need more beds? Or are you saying?
I think on a Code Purple night, on a night when Code Purple is called, the design of Code Purple is really meant to be similar to an emergency room at a hospital.
And you mean
so
year-round?
Again, flex
Okay.
capacity to meet the need of anyone in crisis who shows up. Okay. So in the deepest winter, I think we have had reasonable capacity. Absent that, we absolutely do not have adequate
That's what I wanted
capacity.
to make sure I understood. Okay, that's helpful. So I just have a couple questions, three. So it was alarming to hear that when the point in time count was done, it wasn't a Code Purple night, and that could have influenced the data. So in the past, we've made suggestions around how to handle point in time counts. I'm going to suggest that those shelters be open every time we do a point in time count, because the impact to the data could be so significant.
Yep.
That we would make financial decisions based on such.
A couple of years ago, last year, it is running together for me a little bit, but in recent years, there was a decision to call Code Purple even though the temperature parameters weren't met. And the participation was lower on that night. We only identified 14 people in Code Purple shelters on that night. It was called at the last minute. That might have been a consideration. But yes, I think COC thinking is aligned with what you're identifying.
And to that end, we had been talking in the past about doing additional counts that were outside the required end of January count. Did we pursue any of that?
There's not currently a count scheduled for this summer. There is actually some statewide discussion about doing something similar, and the System Performance Committee of the COC can discuss that. I think the general consensus so far has been that it just takes such an enormous amount of capacity to conduct that, and so COC wanting to understand whether that will give us critical information that we can't get otherwise.
Yeah, it speaks to that year-round number, right? Okay,
And
so
also,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I do think that you're going to see much better data coming from the COC shortly and on an ongoing basis, because they are looking. Data quality has improved significantly in the last couple of years, and they are looking at multiple data sets to be able to combine those into a single comprehensive, I hope, ongoing source of truth. Real reliable source of information that everyone across our community can use.
Okay. Could you jump back to slide 9 real quick? It's the pie chart of individuals versus families with children and child. Yeah, that one. I wanted to highlight what I thought was a kind of an interesting number down here in bold. So we're talking about 824 people, but we're talking about 15 more households. So 15, I almost want to start talking about data in the form of household, because we can.
25.
I'm sorry, 25. What did I say, 15? My point is, I want to talk about it in households more often. Have we always looked at it like that, households? And I just haven't noticed the trend, because it's not as bad, and it's suggesting we need more family units, clearly. But the goal is different if it's 733 households and not 824 people.
But maybe clarify what you mean by household when you say it like this.
It does not, it does not
Could be a
necessarily
couple.
mean children are involved. Yep.
Could be a couple.
Could also be a single
It can be
individual.
a single individual.
So
They call it household because it's the unit needed for a person or two people. So
Right.
They use the word
But I'm-
household, but it means single.
In the adventure of creating enough units to house people, we don't need 824, we need 733.
That's right.
And that's what I'm getting at, because I'm just not looking at the data that way. And then that's a helpful data point I wanted to make sure we highlighted. And then you kind of touched on budget, but then we went on. So in this upcoming fiscal year 2027 that we're currently talking about budgeting, are we budgeting for the same level of service and same level of code purple, or are we making any adjustments?
doing it.
Yeah, in the current estimates for our FY 2027 budget, we have included an increase for
An
Code
increase.
Purple contribution
Okay.
from the city as well as our partner at the
Oh,
county.
great. And for that point in time count, night. Okay. Great. Thank you.
A couple of things. Thank you for this update. Homeward Bound just recently this week had an event where Jeff Olivet and Charlinda Catchings were here from the Right at Home program. Can you speak a little bit about the city being one of these 10 cities that's chosen, the number of people that were meant to help go upstream and prevent homelessness from happening, and how we will identify those neighbors?
Yes, so this initiative is meant to serve at least 1,000 households, may certainly scale beyond that over that 3-year period. And these are, again, folks who are currently in housing in our community, but at risk of losing that housing. It is different than eviction prevention in that it is targeted homelessness prevention. So really looking to identify not only people being evicted, but of those who's most likely to become homeless if not for this assistance. The COC is in the planning process right now. We actually go to the University of Notre Dame tomorrow for research design and as part of this project. I expect the COC will release an RFP in the next 2 months, maybe a little earlier, for service providers who will implement the initiative. And part of that will certainly include communication to people about how they can access those services. Implementation is expected to begin in the fall.
And then a second thing, I was talking with a neighbor who doesn't have access to housing, does ride the bus, and has to carry all their belongings with them everywhere they go. And so they're trying to get a job. And they were explaining that the community groups that have locker access and showers, the capacity, there's so much demand that they can't always get that shower and drop off their things before they go to work. And so there's more need for day shelters. They also shared their experience with the expanded capacity for a winter shelter and shared my curiosity. So many cities are seeing extreme temperatures. So the question they had was, are we ready for if there are really hot summer days? Are we ready for cooling centers? What's the plan for when the summer is also an emergency? And that was hard it was hard to ignore when it was 87 degrees the first week of April. And I know folks were already turning on their air conditioning, and not everyone can afford housing or air conditioning. So can you speak a little bit about the timeline that we're in approaching emergency shelter? Because I know we're not going to be ready for this summer.
I'll speak to that and then let me know if I don't answer your question. But after Helene, we initiated an emergency planning process through the COC, recognizing that people experiencing homelessness may have different service needs and that may not be accounted for in the general population planning. So we need to be sure that we provide those specialized supports so that everyone can stay safe in an emergency. We're in that process now. We have some coordination underway with both city and county staff to look at how we can integrate with existing emergency plans. And I say all that to say that summer temperatures have been part of that discussion, recognizing that there needs to be an opportunity for folks to stay safe in those conditions. So I don't yet have a clear answer, but can certainly say that that planning process is happening.
Thank you.
Councilman Roney brings up a great point. One of the things that I would really encourage us to look at as we move forward, if we're partnering with partners for an emergency shelter, or really any type of shelter for unhoused folks, is making sure that they don't get kicked out at 8 a.m. every morning so that they're out on the street with no resources, having to carry their bags and belongings everywhere. They don't have access to computers or social workers or anything that can really lift them up, and so they have greater risk of getting into drugs, into alcohol, and into other sorts of issues and problems. So that's a big piece that I don't know if the public realizes, that all of our shelters kick everyone out every day, and then they have to re-present. You know, they could lose their ID in that time. There's a number of things that could happen in that time. And then they have to and that bed isn't always guaranteed for them. So I'm hoping to, just as we move forward in this, get a better, more equitable model for our shelters.
Yes, I would say that there is widespread agreement about that critical need among folks within the COC, and I'm sure across the community. I think to me that ties to the last part on this slide, which is in order to scale the services available in our community, we're going to need to identify key new resources. I mean, really at a significant level if we're going to be able to expand capacity, but there is dire need, and I think providers are excited for any opportunity to expand their services.
And we also need Vaya at the table. We need the city, the county, the state. We need Vaya. We need pressure on Vaya to license these mental health beds, to license these group homes, to license mom and pop folks, and stop going with the 3 overworked community mental health centers. There are plenty of mental health providers out there that want to provide services, but Vaya Health makes the process way too hard, and we need to change that at that state level. And I'm hoping that all of us together can really pressure Vaya and the folks in Raleigh that are running Vaya to step up to the plate for our communities.
You know what? I'm so glad you said that. Vaya is a great partner in the COC. Celeste Ordway is on the COC board in the Behavioral Healthcare System representative seat. And we've recently had a meeting of several COC board members to talk about critical gaps in mental health care in our community and how we can collaborate on filling those gaps. Celeste is aware of that and eager to participate, so I think we'll see some conversation coming through the COC board on that topic.
Thank you.
Any other?
I'm a little green when it comes to what you just mentioned about beds being licensed.
You should join Bo in
It's
one of these
ama-
meetings with Vaya.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
Bo
I'll invite you to the next one.
I learned, I went and I learned.
Yeah, so Vaya receives state funding to help administer programs around mental health and funding of various providers, and so trying to make sure all those resources are flowing through the community to be able to address those issues.
I
It's
will
challenging.
add that, Vaya is such a institution at this point that they also, we're working on an MOU for them to expand for us to have co-response, so that they're going to provide basically 2 staff positions to our AFR REST team that will have co-responders going along. So we have that embedded mental health support and that technical assistance. So I think that there's so much to learn about the full role that Vaya does or could play, but I do want to just express that gratitude that through the Behavioral Health Justice Coordinating Committee, don't have the acronym down yet, we just have been expanding the MOU, and it's been really positive. So I think that I've seen this is a good sign that Vaya wants to be at the table, wants to meet the community needs. So by building these relationships, making these asks, finding the partnership opportunities, I think that it's a great resource that we can leverage more for better community support.
Yes, and the co-responder program is great. And when you have a co-responder that meets someone in crisis, you want to be able to build out the infrastructure of a continuum of care all the way through aftercare. And that middle piece of treatment and rehabilitation and aftercare is what we're really missing in the community on a broad scale.
And I do think too, Bo, one of the things you mentioned about what happens with folks during the day and having to leave. So when we did a lot of research around an emergency shelter, that is one of the functions that some of them serve in their communities, which is that a day shelter. We of course have a HOPE, but it's small and not always available. And so the idea around one of the functions of an emergency shelter is to be a large place where people can rest during the day or have resources during the day. So of the many things an emergency shelter can do. So just keeping our eye on that. I do want to say, Emily, you're amazing and your team is amazing. And us being one of the communities to be selected for Right at Home is very much to your credit, and being able to facilitate the creation of the COC, now just experiencing its 2-year anniversary, which is an amazing thing. If you look at all the other recipients of the Right at Home grant, I think one of these things is not like the other, right. In that Asheville is a small town being selected for this. And it's really exciting because the whole idea is around prevention, and in talking with Jeff, the goal of eventually codifying and funding programs like this throughout the United States, because the United States is, to say the least, stumbling when it comes to caring for our most vulnerable and folks who are experiencing homelessness due to our nationwide housing crisis, which is very profound here and in other similar communities to ours. And if we don't figure out a way to holistically address it, it will only worsen. So thank you for all the work you're doing, amazing work, and keep it up. Keep making us do our job too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing further.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, we have one public hearing item, and that is a public hearing, one really big public hearing item, I should say. And it's a public hearing to consider a conditional zoning request for the property located at 50 Cox Avenue from Central Business District to Central Business Expansion Conditional Zone. And Will Palmquist, as usual, is fighting his way upstream to come make the presentation on this item. And I do want to point out, this is one of these rare opportunities to have the county here, because the county is actually the applicant here. So welcome, County Manager Avril Pender and team. And I just want to make that welcome before we hear from Will Palmquist.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Good evening. Will Palmquist with Planning and Urban Design. I'll be presenting this conditional zoning request for the project known as 50 Cox Avenue Affordable Housing. Here you can see the project site located downtown. It is a 1.6 acre site that includes 3 different properties. They are owned by Buncombe County, administrative buildings with surface parking lots. You can see the frontages along the property and site include Aston Street, Cox Avenue, Sawyer Street, and Ravenscroft Drive. The existing zoning is Central Business District. Due to the size of the proposed project, a rezoning to the CBD Expansion District is required. The future land use, as identified in the city's comprehensive plan, is downtown. No change in that is required for the project. So here is the site plan for the proposed project. I'll kind of break it down for you, the various components of it. What is proposed is a 7-story tall mixed-use project with 203 affordable multifamily units and approximately 5,000 square feet of retail on the ground floor. As far as access goes through the site, it's kind of interesting. There's a few things going on. They're helpful to understand. One of which is that the existing Sawyer Street is proposed to be removed. The right-of-way through that area where Sawyer Street exists today was closed a couple of years ago in anticipation of this project. So at the second story, the project spans over this open area that will be open and accessible for pedestrians through that first floor kind of plaza area. As far as vehicular access goes, circulation around the site will still allow vehicles to travel down Sawyer Street, and this one-way alley to the north will allow vehicles to travel north to Aston Street and then turn either way from there. There is a parking deck proposed as part of the project integrated into the building with a total of 121 parking spaces. The parking deck is on 2 separate levels, not connected internally. The lower level is accessed off Cox Avenue with 50 spaces. The driveway is down here at the southern portion of the site. And the upper level of the garage, which is kind of L-shaped and follows the same shape as the building, has a 71 spaces. That's accessed off Ravenscroft. You can see the retail spaces here on Cox Avenue, 3 spaces total with approximately 5,000 square feet. Some other site improvement amenities include a proposed plaza planting area with a green roof on the 3rd story, kind of the 3rd floor plan of the building. And then street trees are proposed along the frontages, as well as sidewalks, which vary in width from 10 to 12 feet, and then 6 feet along the alley. There is an existing streetscape redesign project that the city is working on for Cox Avenue from Patton Avenue to Southside Avenue. So the project has been coordinating closely with that city project and the consultant team to incorporate that streetscape design into their project. So if they were to get under construction beforehand, they would build the streetscape that fits into that overall Cox Avenue streetscape plan. Here are just a couple elevation drawings showing the overall character of the building. The top elevation is the Cox Avenue elevation. You can see the retail spaces with the glass storefronts, the parking garage on the southern side of the site, and then you can see that recessed first story that is through to the other side of Sawyer Street. The other elevation is a view that you would kind of see if you're coming down the alley towards the other side of the building. You can see that there are other units proposed that add some variety to the types of units that the project's proposing. This includes 8 separate 2-story townhome style buildings along Sawyer Street. And those are part of the overall project and would be renter occupied as proposed. So the main condition associated with this project is that all the units would be designated as affordable for a minimum of 30 years. That would be at 80% area median income or lower. There are 2 technical modifications to zoning requirements that the project is requesting through this conditional zoning process. The first is regarding the 1-story portion of the building along Cox Avenue. Technically, all new buildings downtown are required to be 2 stories in height. I'm going to flip back to that elevation drawing. This section of the building right along Cox Avenue is 1 story in height, so that's a request to modify that requirement. The other modification being requested is a reduction in the tree canopy preservation requirement, which is 10% currently for the site, and a request to reduce that to 1.2%. The project was reviewed by the Technical Review Committee in March, where it was approved with conditions. Later that month, it was approved with conditions by the Design Review Committee, and then approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission at its April 1st meeting with conditions. Staff finds that the project is consistent with the Living Asheville Comprehensive Plan, specifically the future land use designation of downtown, which speaks to new development and revitalization opportunities, including mixed use, commercial, residential, especially affordable residential housing.
Can you go back to what you
Sure.
were saying about the 80% under the modifications? Can you?
Regarding the tree canopy preservation, or the 80%
Yeah.
affordable?
Was it always 80? Was it always 100% at 80% AMI? Or is
It's
that
always
the
been
plan?
written that way in the project conditions. That hasn't changed recently. The project could opt to provide deeper affordability, but this is kind of the baseline that they have agreed to as far as the project conditions go. They may be able to speak more about what their potential mix of affordability might be, but at the very minimum, all the units will be affordable to those at 80% AMI or lower.
That's not the blended version where some goes above 80 and some goes down?
This is not income averaging, this is just kind of a baseline, and then all units have to be at or
Have to be
below.
80 or
Okay.
lower.
Correct.
So that's better than what we usually get from a LIHTC project, that it has a blend.
It can vary. I don't know if it's better or
I don't know
not.
about that.
Sometimes they will do
We've got some
income
that-
averaging.
Yeah, maybe better is not the right word, it's different.
Different, yeah. The project team may speak a little more to what their goals of the project are, because I do believe the goal is to have deeper affordability. But as far as the project conditions and the baseline that are going to be that are proposed to be written into the project conditions for the conditional zoning, this is what's being proposed.
Also, along with the affordability, I wish they would start at 60% or less, but also, I hope that they're open to folks who have maybe less than stellar credit histories and scores, especially as student loans came back online and they started charging folks who weren't able to pay, and also for nonviolent offenses and drug offenses, that they stay open to housing those folks as well.
And do we have any, you know how we sometimes have that will accept voucher language? Is that in there? Anywhere? Nowhere?
That is not written into the conditions. We can ask the project team if they'd be willing to consider that, though. That is a good point.
Well, let's ask the project team if they'd be willing to consider that.
Yes, please.
Sure.
We're going to hear from them right after you're done with your presentation.
Yes.
Okay.
In regards to the goals that the project supports, these include encouraging responsible growth by providing infill development in targeted growth areas, increasing mixed-use development along transit corridors. I forgot to mention that the ART Transit Station is pretty much right across the street from the project site on Cox Avenue, and also increasing and diversifying the housing supply by increasing the supply of housing, including affordable housing. Therefore, staff concurs with the Planning and Zoning Commission and recommends approval of the proposed conditional zoning. I'm glad to answer any questions you all may have.
Sounds like you guys have more questions for them, but do you have any zoning-related
I
questions?
have one question for you, Will. Can you go back to the elevation, the front elevation, when you were talking about the one story?
Yeah.
Is this like is there a step back? How significant is it?
So they are providing that step back. So it gets confusing, and I've learned I'm not very good at explaining it, but there is a requirement that buildings downtown have
2
to
stories and a
step back a little bit after they go up a couple stories. They're having their step back at the first story, so they're meeting the step back
But
requirement.
just one, so it is the correct depth?
It is correct,
Okay.
yes, it is
That's what
10
I was
feet
getting
back.
at, okay. That's not as bad.
Yep.
Any fear that we'd be allowing some kind of precedent that could force our hand in the future if we don't do our second story?
I don't know if there's fear about precedent. I think this project being conditional zoning affords the opportunity to have these discussions around design and more flexibility. If it's a project that's kind of by right and is not a conditional zoning, I think they'd be incentivized to design it in a way to meet
Yeah,
the
I mean, I'm
UDO.
thinking back to when we did where the, what is it now? It used to be Hoppy's downtown on South French Broad. We allowed the one story there, and it was it was actually, they found there was an actual challenge to it or something, but I just don't know if we're committing a problem here.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councilmember Turner. I don't believe you are, is the
Okay.
short answer. It is built into the legislative process, conditional zoning specifically, that you have the right to approve deviations from the standard plans. That does not change the plans themselves. So the rules will remain in effect, and that you're given a tremendous amount of legislative deference to make those decisions, in each case deciding if it's reasonable in the best interest of the community.
I guess, because I don't mind it in this particular model. I just want to make sure we're not creating a trend.
Any other questions for? Will? Nope. Okay, does the, you said team, part of the team, does somebody from the team?
Hardship, that was the word I was looking for. They had a hardship there. This is not a hardship.
The word I was trembling over was hardship, not challenge, but because the Cox Avenue had a hardship. These guys don't have a hardship, right?
Hello?
That has
Do you want this slide to stay up here? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
I just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Amy Gornto. I'm with Harmony Housing Affordable Development. Thank you for this opportunity to come speak with you about 50 Cox Avenue. I'm here with my team, my engineers and architect. I'd also like to thank the public for their comments over the last couple of meetings. And we're here to address any of your questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, one of my evergreen questions is, that I ask for every development. Is there a plan for renewable energy, or is there anything about the design of the project that prevents renewable energy in the future? For example, some new development puts air conditioning units on the top of the whole ceiling or the roof, so you couldn't put solar in the future. So in this question, some have committed to moving the air conditioning units to the side so that there could be a future option.
Well, currently our plan includes solar and the green space. So
Thank you.
And the green roof.
right,
Which
the
is
green space.
really cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
With regard to vouchers, is it your intention to accept vouchers, and would you have a commitment to accept vouchers?
Yes, we are very open to accepting vouchers. I know with the Housing Authority and the information with HUD right now, they're not currently able to issue any sort of commitment to giving us vouchers, but we are very open to that discussion when that can be had again.
So Brad, what does that look like?
We have, in certain circumstances in the past, included a condition in the agreed-upon conditions to the rezoning that require a process by which vacancies would explore the option of a voucher holder as part of each new vacancy, in terms of usually it's limited to the affordable units, which would include the entirety of this particular project for the affordable period. But it essentially takes the form of a new condition that says we will explore, with the cooperation of the Housing Authority, the potential to accept vouchers every time there is a vacancy. Not requiring that those be accepted if there's not one available, but requiring that the process be explored each time.
Thank you.
So is that something you'd be willing to include as a condition?
We would
prior to our
definitely be
vote?
willing to discuss that. I can't commit, anything right now at this time, but we would definitely be open to discussing that.
But you're not able to commit because of the issue with the Housing Authority not being able to commit them, not that you don't want to.
Right.
Yeah,
That's not what I'm hearing.
that's not what you're hearing? Because
Well, two different things. I think what Brad said is the condition says that you'd be willing to discuss with the Housing Authority, and if the Housing Authority could do it, you would consider doing it.
Right, we would have to discuss it. But
that language is good. Tonight, they just can't say they can for sure because they haven't talked to the Housing Authority.
So I think, are we asking the applicant to agree to language you just said, Vice Mayor?
Yeah.
Which is pretty wiggly in terms of,
Which
Yeah.
is wiggly what he
Is that-
said.
yeah.
It sounds
wiggly,
good.
but yeah.
Is that the will of council?
I think
Yes.
first we have to hear if the applicant's willing to agree to the language. Do you want us to repeat the language?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Brad, this is his favorite thing, is to quickly draft a condition on the spot.
Without asking the applicant ahead of time.
Brad,
My
carry on.
pleasure. I'm actually trying to find some language that we've used in the past, so I can give you the very specific details about this. But essentially, this is one step above what I would say we had used in certain cases, which says that the applicant will accept vouchers. This actually mandates a process by which any new vacancy, you will, as a first step, explore with the Housing Authority the ability to determine if a voucher holder is available, before then leasing units to the general public.
What does explore mean? Does that mean call them and say, is there anyone on your list? Does that mean on our list that the apartment actually has, that if there's someone with a voucher, they move up to the top? Or what does that look like operationally?
Operationally, it's intended to mean that if there's a voucher holder that's ready, willing, and able, that is the individual who would get the first chance to rent an available unit. And it would only be if no one was available or ready or interested in that unit, would you be able to move on from the
Whoa.
voucher holder.
I did
what's
not
the-
know we were doing that.
And what's the language that you were saying was one tier down?
One tier down, we had previously in the past simply included a condition that said we won't discriminate based upon source of income, including the acceptance of vouchers.
Matt Card, Buncombe County Community Development. This project has always been willing to accept vouchers, and so it's something that we've looked into, but with the Housing Authority not being able to do that right now, that's something, we haven't been able to do, but we are willing to accept vouchers, for sure.
I will add, in the past, we've had developments, I'm hearing your intention across the board, but we've had some developments and projects that said, up to a certain threshold, like a percentage of the units would always have that precedent filling. Was not of the impression that we'd ever asked anybody for all of the units to have that, but
Maybe we ask for a person.
yeah, it's interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
It seems to me it's an invitation. So I talked to a neighbor in North Asheville, and she has a voucher. And so she has gone to 6, 7 locations applying to rent a unit. And once they find out that she's paying with a voucher, which means the rent is deposited automatically into the account by the federal government, rent is always paid on time, they are declining because she's paying with a voucher. And the state of North Carolina prevents us from protecting against source of income discrimination. So the ask is simply, when there's a vacancy, will you ask HACA if anyone's looking for a room? And so it does seem to me that the step up is just making that invitation first.
Oh, I'm
Also,
just trying to
what's
think
up-
about how to draft something to the extent you can agree to it.
Okay, because what you said actually was different than what I was thinking.
Okay,
So
well,
I'm-
let me say that we've done this multiple different ways in the
Yeah.
past. And as with all conditions, these can only be included if both the applicant and the city agrees. This is a voluntary option, but I can tell you, in the past, most recently, the city has included a clause to say, quote, vouchers and voucher holders will receive priority as to the leasing of units. To this end, developer will notify HACA of the actual or pending availability of eligible units on a monthly basis. If no voucher holder is able to commence tenancy when an eligible unit becomes available, that unit may be leased as an affordable unit, and the next available unit shall be reserved and marketed to a voucher holder under the same terms and conditions. I would call that a right of first refusal
Yeah.
for a voucher holder in coordination with HACA.
For all units.
In the past, we have limited it to 50%
It's like
or
whatever
less,
percentage per.
as dependent upon the total affordable count.
And really, they don't even know how many project-based vouchers they might get, or those would be mobile vouchers, I guess.
Yeah,
Well, you're not talking about
Yeah,
project-based.
they're mobile vouchers, yeah.
we were pursuing vouchers
But
for
you can't get 'em.
30% or less.
Oh, for 30% or
Yes.
less. So you did have a
Originally,
percentage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
So that is what you're actually, because in this process, it's what you volunteer, what we volunteer, and if we agree. So you're actually saying 30% of the units.
That was the original intent of
Okay.
this project, yes.
And are you willing to go to the 100%, which is what I hear the ask is?
Does not sound like.
Okay.
And with the vouchers, isn't the reimbursement rate on the vouchers actually market rate and not the affordable rate? Right, so you would be better off with the vouchers, or am I not
It depends on the
understanding
unit.
that process? Right, because I think you get reimbursed at what the market rate is versus what you're charging the other folks. So I would think the vouchers would be an incentive.
I would say that's one component of the vouchers but there's a lot of other components as well.
I'm not saying 100% of the things, I mean, we can have it, but just saying that, from what I understand.
Are you saying your intention was to already allow 30% of the units to take vouchers?
We were pursuing vouchers for, I forget the specific number of vouchers, but they would be used for the 30% units, yes.
For the
30
30%.
For the 30%
Units, okay.
Oh.
But you don't know what percentage
Yeah,
would
what
be the
30%
30% units?
We
I saw it.
do. We have a percentage, I think it's 17%, was that correct?
Wait.
Oh, okay,
30%
so
of the
let's
units, or
talk
the units
about
accepting 30 AMI.
So,
That's what he said.
okay, so they're
We're
not
getting
all
confused.
80%, there's 80% or lower.
Yeah, it's 100% affordable, 80%
100%
or lower. Roughly, at this point in time, 30% is 17%, 30%
30
AMI,
30 AMI, okay.
30% AMI, 17% of the units.
Okay.
That's 20. 20% of the units, 5%. I mean, sorry,
Wait,
20%
20
AMI,
5%.
60% AMI would be 56, and 80% or less would be 21%.
So that's great, and that's what we were asking
Oh,
earlier. So
okay.
that really tells
Okay.
us a lot, because when you get into the 30s and the 50s, you qualify for the voucher, you will likely get the voucher. Okay.
But you're not proposing it as an actual condition, that's your intention, but the condition has more flexibility in that.
I mean, it's a LIHTC project, so I think they're, right?
Yeah.
It is
It's
a
fine,
LIHTC.
yeah.
It's a
So-
4% LIHTC project.
So by its nature, won't it?
I don't know about
It'll be 80 and below,
Making
and you're
that a
saying they'll accept the vouchers for income levels.
condition for them.
Okay.
Too many people are talking at the same time, team.
Hold on just a second. Let's finish this one. So are you, based on what you all just learned, do you feel that we need to have
No.
some voucher
I
conditional
think it's
language?
Yes,
No.
Okay.
because he's saying it's just the intention to do 30. I just need you to put what you intend as a condition. I mean, I don't need it, but
One person is
If
asking
it's
for it.
helpful.
yeah.
I think the one difference between us as presenting this product to you rather than other developers is that you have the backing of the county that operates an affordable housing services program that's also part of the consortium, that shares the same vision and goals about our affordable housing problems and issues. And I think that we are committed to providing a range of affordability. We would prefer a condition that doesn't lock us in and gives us some flexibility, with the understanding that we're also presenting to you, I believe it was contained in the staff report or in some previous hearings, our mix of affordability of the units. If we could have that as a substitution of a condition, that would help us out greatly.
And I think
I'd
it
be
gets,
open to that actually, because
Yeah.
when you started with just 80, it gave me pause.
that's where we got astray.
We probably could
Yeah.
have used an additional slide.
Yeah.
to go
Yes.
ahead and-
That would have showed
We're
us
just really
exactly-
protective of making sure that we cover those at 30 and 50% AMI, and we know that they qualify for vouchers, and we'll likely have them. But when we don't see the makeup, we're like, whoa, wait, we need to make sure. So that's helpful. And if you added that information about those breakdown of units and AMI targets, then I would feel good.
So can we add down the,
Yep. So
add the
I
breakdown?
think what you're suggesting, Councilmember Turner, is to amend the condition regarding the affordability
Yes.
to break down the specific AMI.
And it can be targets, like the
Yeah.
percentages or something.
We would prefer, some
Yeah.
kind of flexibility
We're
with
not going to
that.
make it down to the exact unit count. A target is good.
Brad?
Somebody's going to have to give me what the breakdown was again. I don't think I heard that.
Maybe you can just show him, instead of someone trying to say it again. While we're waiting for this to get gelled up, anybody have any other questions about the project?
I'll just be really frankly, I'm trying to understand why the reluctance to accept vouchers. Like,
They're
it
not.
seems that way.
That's not what I
There's
hear.
no reluctance to accept vouchers. Harmony Housing had multiple meetings with the Housing Authority. It just, with the guidance that HUD published, they've paused that program. So we paused the pursuit of those vouchers, but we're totally willing to pick that back up again with them.
We're going to be really good partners, the county and the city. We're just going to fumble through it our first ones. It's okay.
Any other questions
No.
while we're waiting on this to get fixed?
There's some questions from the public about traffic not going onto Cox Avenue and instead going onto Ravencroft.
Does somebody want to address
Just
that?
love to hear
Yeah,
kind
sure.
of the design thinking
members of
behind
design
that.
team.
If you would just introduce yourself when you step forward, thank you.
My name is Paul Coons. I'm representing Bolton and Mank, landscape architecture and civil engineering firm.
Okay, can you address the traffic question? Do
Yeah,
you want
well-
to say the traffic question again?
Just, there's been community concerns about the traffic flow going out onto Ravencroft instead of Cox Avenue. Kind of the request is, why couldn't it go onto Cox Avenue? That's a street with a lot more infrastructure. So could you just talk about the design thinking behind that?
Yeah, certainly. So as a part of the project design and process, we've done a traffic impact study. I think in particular addressing the question of how we're splitting cars going onto Ravenscroft versus Cox Avenue. I'd say one point in that is taking advantage of the 15-foot grade change across the site. Another thing that we analyzed, or another item we analyzed, was there's roughly about 120 plus parking spaces out there now on the 100% impervious lot that we are working on. And we are actually reducing parking that is going on to Ravenscroft by about 50 parking spaces. And then, so basically we're going from 121 or 120 that's out there to 71 that exit from the second floor of the parking deck onto Ravenscroft, and then an additional 50 onto Cox Avenue.
So you're saying that currently there's more parking that's accessing Ravenscroft than there would be post-project?
That's correct.
Because the removal of some parking. Oh, so you do have an egress on Cox for part of it? For
Yeah,
one-
so
for one deck layer.
50 residents can egress onto Cox Ave, and 71 residents or cars can egress in and out onto Ravenscroft.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Did you guys get that sorted?
It is in the works.
Okay, we'll keep asking more questions.
Was there
Hear
a
it one
traffic
more time, too.
impact analysis where the two intersections are at Ravenscroft and Hilliard and Church and Hilliard?
Yes, sir. So we recently just completed a supplementary study at Ravenscroft and Hilliard in addition to Church and Hilliard. And the results that we found were insignificant, and there were no delays or queue delays at those intersections. We did make a recommendation in that analysis that it might be beneficial to correct any site issues, line of sight issues that have been brought to our attention at Ravenscroft and Hilliard. But at this time, we feel that that is pretty far off site from the project.
And you said you had just finished that, and I wonder if the city has that information yet. Probably not.
No, the city does not have that information, but if that's something that they would like to see, we are more than happy to share that with them.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Timeline. What's
said
the timeline?
timeline?
Yeah, I'm just curious, what's the timeline?
I think, we're working through the NCHFA full application in the coming months. And then I think we're slated to get our final TRC in somewhere around August, September timeline. We do have to advance the design a little bit further through our design development and construction document phases, and then align that with the architectural scope as well.
Since they're still working on some things, just a little sidebar, are you guys doing the full parking requirement? Or I know that in the past, that you're not, okay, because you can reduce it now, right, in the QAP. So what is the ratio?
So I believe we are requesting a waiver for a decreased amount of parking, but we're currently at 0.59 spaces per unit. Typically, we see in a market rate project or a project that's not necessarily in a downtown urban core, somewhere between 1.5 to 2 spaces
Right.
per unit.
In the past, I chair the housing consortium for the region, and the mayor and I have both signed letters that help support that ask if you need such. I support the concept in our downtown of
Thank
reduced
you.
parking, yeah.
I know that entrance and exit has a kind of like an overhang, I'd say, and I think at one of the community meetings, it was mentioned that there's going to be 24-hour security there. Is that the plan for that area, to keep that area clear of?
I think the intent there is to, that is one portion of the design that we're still evaluating and studying, but we'd really like to make sure it's well lit and as safe as a space as possible. And we understand some of the challenges and constraints that become apparent in a space like that. I would have to leave that up to the county and ownership on what their plans are with the leasing agency that takes over. But that's, I'm not sure I can speak much more to that.
Thank you.
Is this your first Asheville project? We just have time, so small talk.
Yeah, it was. Kevin Amos with Bolton and Mink. We were also formerly a firm, Colton S. and Stone, who did some projects. We did New Belgium and actually worked on Pack Square. So we've done work here, but this is our first. And I just have to say, I said this in the Planning Commission meeting too, that the process has been fantastic. Planning staff and really all of the city staff have been very accommodating. We had a very expedited schedule. We had a lot of issues to work through. It's a very urban site, so existing utilities, site access, really everything you can imagine in a very small site. And I have to really commend, I do these in a lot of cities, and we don't get the same kind of cooperation to get to this point. So it's been a real pleasure to work with staff and to go through the process.
I'm so glad I asked. Thanks. And Brad looks ready.
Okay, Brad's
You do
emailed
have
us.
that. Just as a reminder, this does require a public hearing that'll have to be open and closed.
Don't just jump.
Council, are we ready for the public hearing, or do you have any other questions?
I want to hear what this, I want to hear what this is one more time, because I got lost in
Want me to just
this
read
and
it?
that and
What he
this.
sent was,
So this is a condition.
all units shall be designated as affordable at least 80% of AMI for a period of 30 years, but more specifically delineated as follows: 11 units at 20% AMI, 35 units at 30% AMI, 113 units at 60% AMI, and 44 units at 80% AMI.
Okay. This is how we clap silently. This just sounds great.
Is the applicant in agreement with the conditional, the condition, the language of the condition?
Can those, as, you know, things change.
Plus or minus?
We need some flexibility with that.
I was going to
Can-
suggest
Well,
that.
Do you have some suggestion for language that would provide?
So as opposed to specifically delineated, like
Like it
with
could be 10.
targets such as?
Targets.
Because that's the heart of
ranges.
this difference here, because if it, as written, you'd have to come back
Yeah, you don't
if
want
it changed, so
Yeah.
I don't hear, okay.
You need some flexibility.
This is why the vouchers is so interesting, because if it's between 30 and 60, you really wouldn't know what the number was. It would just be a voucher regardless.
My only pause to that proposal, Councilmember Ullman, is with the word target, we don't have a way to delineate exactly what that means, so it becomes difficult to enforce if an issue were to ever arise.
Well, I think.
So what I'm hearing, the applicant is saying that what you wrote to us, they
too
were
rigid.
not comfortable with, so then we need to
Did you guys
consider
bring
that.
your attorney?
We did not.
I'm just kidding.
I think if we can make a small change to something like, we're gonna make our best face the efforts to meet these, but I will tell you, with every development and every project, you're gonna have some amount of hiccup. We do need the ability through our Affordable Housing Services Program to modify that slightly. And if we can't get in someone in one group, we'd like to put them in the next group, or vice versa, if you know what I mean. So if we could have something like targeted using best faith efforts through the county's Affordable Housing Services Program, our goal here is to get folks in these units and meet all of these different thresholds without just locking us down to exact numbers.
Yeah, I gotta say, I feel like this conversation is making me nervous that we're gonna turn away an amazing partner who's working their butts off with housing bond money to do an amazing project in the right place, so that perfect is the enemy of progress.
no, it feels like we just want to wordsmith.
Yeah, we're
so
just
that they
learning
have
our
the
wordage.
Flexibility that they
Yeah,
need,
let's give them
we need what
flexibility.
we need as well.
We've been
Do we
through this
have
with
the
so many
ability
So
to
developments.
then
do that?
why doesn't it just say something like with the goal of the following affordability
Well, that goal
rates?
is a.
That's not a
so
condition.
What about like the spread that is a voucher spread? Like the percentage of units between 30 and 60%.
That's what I was about to say. So as much as 20% under 50 AMI would cover your 11, your 35, give you some grace. But to that point, I don't know what's legal.
At this point.
50%
Council,
at
it's-
30 to
it's-
60%.
It's really up to
I
you
know.
and the applicant to
Yeah,
come
I'm
up
just
with
trying, I'm
language
just
that you
gauging what
agree
I'm
on.
hearing the
I
applicant
can write
say.
whatever you'd like.
Was the specific unit number that seemed to be the pinch point, so.
If I can make a proposal, council, just if you want to go from the most simplified version of this, you could use perhaps a condition which says, all units shall be designated as affordable at not less than 80% of AMI for a period of 30 years. The applicant shall further use its best efforts to meet this condition, more specifically delineated as follows, and listing the criteria that you had. It
best
gives
effort,
you a
whatever.
certain degree of flexibility, but it would require your best efforts to meet that.
Does that work? Yeah. Because that gets at it.
Can you send that to us?
Yeah.
I think we can work with that.
I think that gets
Awesome.
at it, right?
Thank you.
And we do trust you as partners and fellow government.
This is actually us being easy.
No.
Okay, so we do have several people signed up to speak, and I think if we're done with this part, we're going to open the public hearing. You guys can.
Thank you, guys.
So don't go anywhere yet. So we'll do the public hearing. We have approximately 8 people signed up to speak under the public hearing portion of this item. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please watch the lights on the lectern. Green means go, orange means you're getting close to stopping, and red means stop. The first person signed up to speak under this item is Kyra Kavanaugh.
Hello, City Council. I'm Kira Kavanaugh. I'm a resident of 100 Cox Avenue, and I'm glad to be here with you today. We're supportive, I'll speak for myself, I'm supportive of 50 Cox Avenue and really appreciate the voucher conversation. I have 2 specific concerns. One is the pedestrian overhang. It's a pretty significantly large space, and as I'm sure you're all aware, there is, because we don't have enough day centers, a whole bunch of folks who are stuck having to hang out at the transit center on Cox. So I would ask the council to make a condition that that the developer run the plan for that overhang by Asheville Police Department to provide their recommendations as to how you could be building that area to accommodate safety. And the other issue is the parking deck. The original plan called for all 121 cars to exit out onto Ravenscroft. 13 people showed up at the neighborhood meeting and were very concerned about that. The surface parking lot that the man referred to is actually accessible by both Ravenscroft and Cox, so 100 cars are not exiting out onto Ravenscroft. At the Planning and Zoning Committee, there were 20 neighbors that came, submitted public comment, and we have concern about the quality of life of the neighborhood behind 50 Cox on Ravenscroft. There were 3 specific recommendations that we'd like to see carried through by y'all. One is that because Ravenscroft is going to be so impacted, and because the city did not originally require, as part of the traffic impact study, an evaluation of the impact of traffic and noise on Ravenscroft and Church, and now that 71 cars are going to be exiting, that there be 3 considerations for the city transportation department. One, to convert Ravenscroft Drive into a one-way so that it would reduce the 2-way traffic into the parking deck. The second is to designate on-street parking for the homeowners and buildings on Ravenscroft. And the third is to inspect the pedestrian crossing at Ravenscroft and Hilliard to try to increase safety. The man said that these intersections of Church and Hilliard and Ravenscroft and Hilliard are far away. They're not. If families are crossing with children, if there are people with disabilities, both of those intersections, especially Ravenscroft and Hilliard, are dangerous. We also want to recognize that there is a multimodal study that will be done of Hilliard, and we would still request, given the potential for a long time frame for Hilliard to be modified, that there at least be a pedestrian, better pedestrian markings for that intersection.
Thank you. Spencer Cargis? Cargis? Okay. You'll tell us, Spencer, how to say your last name.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Spencer Cargis. Thanks for having me. I can't think of a single specific project that's more of a slam dunk than this one. It's dense housing, downtown, 100% affordable. It's the exact type of thing we need to be supporting if we're going to accomplish our city's goals of having a more safe, affordable, sustainable Asheville. I couldn't have gotten kind of teed up for this one better with our Continuum of Care update earlier, but I was going to speak about homelessness specifically, and I would like to make a direct connection between these two items tonight. We have in front of us an opportunity to house, 203 households. That's a big chunk of that 800, It might not, obviously, those folks wouldn't be living exactly here necessarily, but this is how it works. Homelessness is a housing problem, as we heard. There is a direct connection between building homes, or I should say not building homes, and increased homelessness. So just straightforwardly, a vote against this is a vote to increase homelessness. And many times we don't like to make that connection because it feels like, the status quo isn't harmful, but it is harmful, and it is contributing to those rising numbers. So I would just like to make that connection explicit for you when you vote on this measure. So thank you for supporting housing in Asheville, and thanks.
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is Andrew Paul. You always write Andrew, but you call yourself Andy.
Hey everyone, I'm Andy or Andrew. I'm a lead organizer with Asheville for All, and I just want to express my support for this project. And really, Spencer said it all, I think. All I have to say is, I remember coming to Asheville 12 years ago for a job downtown, and I did not own a car, and I had a week to look for housing before I moved down. And I thought I would love to live downtown. And I looked through Craigslist, I looked through the newspapers, and I found one apartment to look at downtown. My whole week down there. And it was those condos on Hiawassee, which, are fine. I did not get that apartment. And so I'm just thinking about me of 12 years ago, who would have loved to be able to live downtown and walk around, having not owned a car, and thinking about all the working people in Asheville, all the people that serve food downtown, all the people that work in hospitality, that could use a place like this to live, to make their lives easier. That's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Stephen Riblet.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steven. I'm here with Strong Towns. I frequently pass this location when getting on and off the bus to my home in West Asheville. I couldn't imagine a better place in town to put 200 affordable housing units. It's centralized, bringing in potential local customers to the businesses nearby and throughout Asheville. By adding it to downtown, we're creating competitive pricing for other complexes to attempt to match to bring their own prices down, helping even more people out. In addition, if folks wanted to access other parts of Asheville because of its centrality, both the bus and other multimodal opportunities already exist, which is great, and a perfect reason why we do not need as many parking spaces for this project as others. And lastly, it transforms what is a low-use space into a high-use one. It provides not only homes, but retail. What this will do is help create a stronger tax base in the city and help address some of the concerns we have around budget, given that parking lots do not contribute the same as retail or homes. So please pass this. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin Tucker.
opportunity to speak with you today. My name's Justin, and I'm also here with Strong Towns and Asheville for All. I'm super excited about this project, and I was very excited to see this PowerPoint, and I was excited to hear the responses to the questions that you all were asking. I was sitting at home today, and I was just writing down what I feel would be the positives that a project like this brings to our city. You're increasing density downtown, where density is needed most. Increasing access to jobs and providing walkability to public transit, the shops and restaurants downtown, grocery stores, the health department. More foot traffic downtown, creating safer streets, reducing crime. Supporting the small businesses downtown, improving the look of Cox Avenue at that particular location, which right now just looks like a parking lot or several parking lots. The potential of a more visibly diverse population of downtown residents, and the possibility of a car-light existence for those who work in the city. I think a project like this saves so many people who are either just barely making it or not really making it at all. And I hear it all the time, and I think a lot of people in this city share that sentiment. So I think any steps towards like more affordability and more housing, specifically downtown at the city center, is super important, and it'll show people that we're not just talking about housing as an issue, we're actually taking steps to try to correct that issue. So that's all, thanks.
Thank you. Jonathan Anzalito.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan Anzalito. I'm a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, but I'm just talking today as a private citizen in that capacity. I also want to speak in favor of this project for all of the reasons that everyone else has mentioned. I think affordable housing right near the transit stop that's largely covering or replacing a parking lot, I think is overall really good for a region of the city that does not have a lot of housing. I wanted to largely comment on one piece, which is one of the regulations that is triggering the technical modification. So I completely understand the intent with the minimum height restriction and then also the step back restriction. I do think, and I completely agree with the intent of both of those regulations, which I put optimizing land that's downtown so we can get more housing, so we can get more, fill in the blank uses in an area that's unlimited supply of land. I actually think that this project is a great example of what those regulations are intended to produce, which I think is ironic that it's causing this project to come before the administrative process. In that frame of thinking, I think that this is also a good example of unintended consequences from those regulations. And then I would encourage the city to maybe rethink or at least revisit how those regulations are working. Because there's a lot of other parking lots in this area that would be prime for affordable housing or a lot of other projects that might get hung up on these regulations as well, unless the city acts and does something proactively. Anyway, hope this project is voted on and approved. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Tyler Solons.
Hi, I'm Tyler Solons with Strong Towns Asheville. What I want to say is this is an opportunity to directly answer our affordable housing crisis in Asheville. And I heard a lot of concerns about the details of the implementation of this. That's understandable. My plea is that we don't get hung up on those details because the crisis we're experiencing is now, it's current. And so it could very easily become that this project takes years and years to implement because we string it along through multiple loops of discussion. My plea is not only to approve this, but also to help expedite it. We really need this to happen today, not 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Marty Benson.
Hey, y'all. Marty Benson. Spencer kind of stole it from me. This is a slam dunk. It's tempting to only come to speak at City Council when there's something contentious or controversial, but it's also really important, I think, for the pro-housing community to show up and congratulate you guys for doing good work. on a project like this. I did want to highlight a few things that I think this really pushes us in the right direction on. Housing, obviously, providing housing downtown right next to the bus stop is incredible. The fact that it's all designated affordable is wonderful. On the issue of traffic, I think we look at our traffic impact analyses in the wrong way. We consider most of the time when we start to think about traffic, the impact on a specific insular corridor or intersection, and we should be looking at it in terms of overall traffic. For the first 2.5 years that I lived in Asheville before I started practicing law, I poured beer at New Belgium, which was a great time. Most of the people I lived with, or that I worked with, could not afford to live in the city limits of Asheville. And this would give people in those sort of job positions access to the blue-collar jobs that are downtown. Most of those people are being imported from elsewhere unless they live with mom or dad. Similarly, putting housing right next to a bus station does a tremendous amount for accessibility. Whether you like it or not, at any given moment, 1/3 of Americans can't drive, even if they have access to a car, because they're too young, they're too old, they're too poor, they're differently abled, or they're differently documented. And putting them close in walkable distance from a whole bunch of jobs, almost all of the amenities and necessities that they need, as well as our main transit hub, is a huge boon for accessibility. Finally, nobody's hit on this yet, but we have a treacherous safety problem in Asheville, which has recently become notorious. And I've long held, as Jane Jacobs did, that the best security detail that a neighborhood can have is full-time residents with a vested interest, 24-hour vested interest in taking care of that neighborhood. That is something that we have a tremendous dearth of in Asheville. Nobody lives downtown relative to the number of people who work here. And putting new residents in this neighborhood is going to make this neighborhood safer. Finally, I think, and this is sort of a novel idea, there have been some concerns about noise that have come up in the conversations around this project. Austin, Texas, and some other jurisdictions have come up with this agent of change idea, where you designate a part of town where people party and there's noise, and that's why we want to live there, and put everybody on notice, potentially even with a deed restriction that says, hey, you're coming into the downtown corridor, and we expect you to expect that it's going to be downtown. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our public comment. I'm going to close the public comment. And Council, do you have any other questions, comments, or I'm going to recognize the Vice Mayor for, looks like we got the motion up.
Okay, I moved to approve the conditional zoning request for the properties located at 50 Cox Avenue from Central Business District to Central Business Expansion Conditional Zone. All units shall be designated as affordable at not less than 80% of AMI for a period of 30 years. The applicant shall further use its best efforts to meet this condition as more specifically delineated as follows. 11 units at 20% AMI, 35 units at 30% AMI, 113 units at 60% AMI, and 44 units at 80% AMI, and find that the request is reasonable, is in the public interest, is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and meets the development needs of the community, and that the request, 1, provides infill development in targeted growth areas, 2, incentivizes redevelopment, especially mixed-use development that contains housing within identified transit supportive centers, and 3, increases the supply of housing, including affordable housing in proximity to schools, transit, and parks.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions, comments? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Council, we have one unfinished business item, and this is a second reading of something we already voted on last time, so we're not taking any additional public comment on this item. It is a second reading and final reading on an ordinance regarding graffiti nuisances of the Asheville Code of Ordinance to amend the definition of graffiti. Do we need to say anything more about it, or Brad, do you want to?
No. Council, you received a full presentation about this at your previous meeting. Nothing has changed since then. This is merely a requirement under state law for these types of ordinances to require 2 readings. I'm happy, of course, to answer any questions that you have about the proposed ordinance, but it is exactly as was presented to you at your last meeting.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's a tie for second. Any other questions or comments? All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. That concludes our printed agenda. I'm going to move on to general public comment. As you already heard, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. The first person signed up to speak is Sharon Summerall.
Hi, Mayor, Council members, Sharon Summerall, member of Asheville. I'm here as Coalition Asheville Neighborhoods, CAN, and my 6 years of reviewing plans with the Urban Forestry Commission gave me a rudimentary knowledge of the zoning, especially conditional zoning. So what's happened is I get a lot of neighborhoods call me when there's a development going on in their neighborhood, and they ask questions to me about CZs and what they can do, what they can't do, and I explain what I know, and then I will email Will what I don't know to give clear and concise responses. You are going to be seeing a development coming through from Shiloh in May. It goes to P&Z May 6th. And what's going on with it, they called me in to explain a lot of the process. Will went a couple days ago to answer more questions. And it's going to be 100% affordable, and it's going to be all apartments. Now, there's a lot of legacy neighborhoods that have done what in Eastern Valley is an area plan. With Shiloh, it's a 2025 plan. And Shiloh's 2025 plan states specifically that developments are single-family development. And the reason behind this, and I've learned a lot of history since I've been doing this with different neighborhoods, is that a lot of the original families that went into Shiloh are part of the redlining. And so it's very important for them as a community that single-family developments, housing, is a monetary legacy for their families that was taken away from them. And so that's why they specifically say that they want housing. And so as a member of a coalition of Asheville neighborhoods, I believe what's going on from watching the developers come in, the neighborhood meetings are coming in and the developers are saying, this is what we're going to do and you better well get along with it. And there's very little discussion because most people don't know what they can and cannot do, what the ZZ process is. And then it's after the fact that they try to put everything together. And we need more communication with the developers and the neighborhoods so that that Shiloh may have agreed to this development if it looked more concise to what they wanted with their plan. And so that there's some kind of compromise that can go on, as opposed to what's going on now is nobody likes this development and they don't want it, even though it is 100% affordable. And you're going to hear as the neighbors go together why they don't want this. And it's because it's not designed to look like a neighborhood. It's going to have a lot of retaining walls, and it looks a lot like where a lot of these people came from. They don't want it to look like this. So that's it for me. It's all to say. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Ben Spencer.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I just wanted to come speak to you about the committee meeting y'all had this afternoon about the Real-Time Intelligence Center. First of all, 45 minutes of interim police chief and 2 paid representatives, 4 private surveillance companies flown out here does not seem like a really balanced way to kind of gauge the facts. Now, time and time again during that committee hearing, which I didn't catch all of, I had to quit listening when I walked in through security down here to be on time to the meeting here. It was framed as a matter of ignorance and of public education. The interim police chief said the real-time intelligence center is just a room, just a screen. Let me read a couple of quotes here directly from Axon, which is the parent company of Fusus, and how they describe their Fusus software. Fusus applies AI-driven object detection and classification across connected cameras to help agencies identify people, vehicles, and objects of interest. Fusus behavioral AI enables agencies to detect motion, events, and activity patterns across connected cameras using configurable, rules-based logic. Teams can define conditions such as movement through specific areas, directional behavior, or activity within restricted zones. Fusus supports image-based detection to search and allowing agencies to capture images from videos or upload approved external images for AI-driven analysis. Fusus supports integration with select third-party AI solutions, allowing agencies to incorporate additional AI-driven detections into their real-time operations. These integrations enable agencies to extend AI capabilities within Fusus. I find it quite unusual that it's just a room, it's just some screens, we already have surveillance. In fact, that was one of the main arguments brought up, is we already have all of these cameras. We've got flock cameras, we've got the car-mounted ALPRs. Where was the public input on that? The fact is, they're using the fact they already have all of this infrastructure to justify a little more. What's a little more? What's a little more? What we need is to take a step back and look at the surveillance infrastructure as a whole that we have allowed to be built up over time within our community, and take a step back and invite the public to actually have a conversation about if that's what we want. Do we want these technologies deployed? Do we want third-party AI solutions being able to be plugged in to your neighbor's camera, to the shop down the street? How would you feel if you had a neighbor who set up a camera and pointed it at your window 24/7? That's what we're doing to each other here. That's what we're doing when we allow neighbors to give the police unfettered access, and not only the police, but other agencies. I implore you all to take a step back on that.
Thank you. Merlin White.
Hello, Merlin White.
Apologize.
Yay.
So well said.
Anyway, a while back, y'all had discussed pertaining to art and Asheville Regional Transit and some of the issues that y'all were trying to achieve to get them to meet mandates for timing. I'm a quadruple bypass, and I had to walk from the top end of the hot spot to my medical appointment just near McDowell Tunnel because the inefficiency of the system. I was 4 days into a heart attack, and I was not totally aware. I ended up spending 3 days into the hospital. This needs to be looked at, and this has been recent. So I don't have the kind of finances to run around and get an Uber or some other mode of transportation. And when the bus system is my only means, and it is currently one of the most inefficient systems I have ever been in, and I've been to many cities, is me getting to the doctor's office really worth my life? Do I have to die for the change to happen? Or for art to be held accountable a little bit more than it has been? I don't mind. It's not the first time I've been in that position. I just prefer not to. So if y'all would please pay attention to the art system and see what you can do to increase their efficiency and their timing. Because today, trying to get here, bus 2046 from West Asheville to here, the man was running 15 minutes behind his schedule. And I ended up walking up here. about 2/3 the distance, yeah, I was feeling it. I'm only working on 3 valve structures at this point, thanks to the secondary heart attack. And with that, I am pleading you, because I've used the bus system here since '89. Some of us has been here for almost the same time from out of state. I'm too old to be playing around with this. And I'm too broken. I really need y'all's help to make this happen. Not just for me, but for many others within the West Asheville area. Those buses are inefficient. I understand that they're trying. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Council, that concludes the public comment signups. And with that, we are adjourned. Our next meeting is, Maggie? May 12th.